All right, zoom, zoom. Oh, I could do the.
I don't have video for you yet, Lance.
Oh,
there we go. Now I do.
Yeah.
Rad. Okay, let me just do a couple. Let me share this a couple places, and then we should be good to go. We are live. Hey, so I made a video of those pictures that you shared with me, Q.
Okay.
So I hope that's cool. It's just like it's like a couple minutes long. We might throw it up there at some point so people can see it, and maybe we can. Hopefully, I'll be able to share my screen so you guys can see it as well, and maybe we can talk through it. Pause for a couple of the because there's definitely some pictures in there that I have some questions about.
Feel free to. I also have a folder on my computer so I can share my screen if necessary.
Okay, cool. Right on. That's great.
How do I share this on Facebook?
What's that?
How do I share this on Facebook? Oh, I see it. Invite link.
Yeah, if you just do the share deal, it's so, and it's great because this helps us kind of just doing, you know, hanging out for a minute or so is gonna help us grow the audience and do that. So I'm gonna change it from speaker view to gallery view.
I'm trying to make that happen.
Here.
How to technology.
So everybody can kind of see. Hopefully that.
And if you turn your computer down in a second, Cookie's going to bring in my Bluetooth speaker, so it's a little bit louder.
Okay, perfect. Oh boy.
I'm going to put this in Georgia Two-Wheel Nation to see if anybody's on there. Boom.
Cool.
All right, all right. Yo, what's good, everybody? On IG, I'm glad you guys have joined us. We're going to get into some deep conversation real quick about motorcycles, about race, about what's happening here in our country, in the world, what it's like to be a Black person, a person of color on a motorcycle, and really about amplifying all of your voices. You know, I dig everybody here who's a photographer, a musician, a painter, a dancer, anything. Like, you guys are important. Everything you guys are creating right now is mad important. You know, particularly, I'm just going to go out and say this, particularly comedians right now. The fact that you guys are finding the silver lining here and allowing people a chance to laugh in the face of all of this trauma and bullshit. Yo, you guys are saving lives. I'm just letting you know.
That is a fact. I mean, watching Andrew Schultz's little 5 minutes about the Confederate flag and watching Chappelle. Chappelle was not terribly funny, but great, amazing stuff that they're doing. So yeah, I applaud you for sure.
Do y'all remember when Kanye West tried to make the Confederate flag like a thing? And like, you know, in a weird kind of roundabout way, I kind of understand what he was trying to do, but then at the same time, you kind of see just the stars and bars, and you're like, you know, this trauma like smacks you in the face like again and again. You think about the answer and all that stuff, and you all of a sudden you're just like Kanye, you just think it too hard, bro. Just let it go.
If you guys want to jump into this real quick, I mean, I've already last night I sat and I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on the history of the Confederate flag. I read a bunch of articles on this, and I didn't know this. Come to find out that what we consider the Confederate flag is not actually the Confederate flag.
Right.
It is the Virginia battle flag. The Confederate flag actually went through several iterations, which there is an iteration kind of in and of itself. If you look at even the Georgia state flag right now, part of that is the Confederate flag. And I did not know that when they took the Virginia battle flag out of the Georgia state flag, I was like, oh, okay, we made some progress. Not realizing they just flipped it on us.
Okay, so you mentioned our flag here in Georgia. When I was a kid, I used to go to this place called OK Cafe. And I even, oh man, I didn't mean to name drop because there's what happens at the end of the story is telling. But OK Cafe, they had the big stars and bars in their dining room. So when you walked in, it was just you walk in and then like there, like lording over the entire dining room was the Confederate flag. I started looking up as a kid. I didn't quite know what it meant, so I was just like, "Oh, look at that," you know. But then you get a little older, and it starts to hit you, and you're like, "Wait a minute!" And then there was some backlash, but the backlash was like, "Take the Confederate flag down." So they did, but then they put up the Georgia flag, and what does the Georgia flag have in it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like,
Wow.
how are we supposed to? Yeah,
Yeah.
Gadsden flag. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy because what NASCAR is talking about right now, even with all motorsports. And there's a picture that I sent to you, Ken, earlier today. I was up in the mountains a few weeks ago, and this guy had on his full leathers, and he had a Confederate flag patch on his shoulder.
No, but what's more confusing about it is there's an Israeli flag above it.
Right. I didn't get a chance to ask him about that, but I've looked at that picture with so many I don't know what's
You don't have the
happening
answer either, do you?
Oh man.
That picture just boggles my mind because he was a cool dude. Like we talked about. I mean, this guy is quick too. He's been racing for years, and he's a really quick dude. And we sat and talked about everything under the sun, and I could not see in that moment a racist part of him.
Mm.
Sure.
So.
Oh yeah, and I meant to say thank you for the fact check. We got a little fact check live going on here because Gadsden flag, that's the one with the snake.
Yes. The don't tread on me.
And that's the one that we could actually maybe steal because it's not the stars and bars. Like maybe just think about that.
Yes.
Sorry, Ken. We're
no, you're fine. So I think I'm not going to be able to 100% fully monitor all the Facebook feed, but I'm going to try my best. We've got some people out there that are definitely watching, which is great. Sam Ray, who does all my graphics and everything, she's great. She's been on the podcast before. She's on a couple other people. I want to introduce our guests today. So, this all started, and I told you guys this, and maybe I said this last week on the show. I don't think I did, but I was in meditation, and it came to me like this is what I know how to do. Right? I've been doing podcasts for 5 years now. I don't claim to be an expert or anything. I know the motorcycle industry pretty well, and so we had our show last week, and I don't know if I told you guys this either or not, but after the show, I started crying. And the reason I started crying was because I felt like I actually did something where maybe I reached some people, right? Like, and actually we weren't just talking about, and not that there isn't a place for entertainment, there isn't a place for people sharing stories. I think that that's great. But I feel like now is the time where I don't give a shit if Sturgis was canceled or not. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's great, whatever. People are having it, like people get to go on vacation. Awesome. Right. But to me, that's not news. Right. It's just, it's not super important to me. What's important to me is, how divided our nation is right now, what we do to bring people back together. Right. And how do we listen? How do we learn to listen? So I've got Lance Jones on, and I've got, I'm not even going to try it. Quintavius. There we go. Quintavius. Sorry. Quintavius. I was like, oh no. And it's Oliver. Yeah. Quintavius Oliver. Okay. Sorry. So, and it's right on the right-hand side of my screen here. And you got, so I saw your post, Lance, and I think that's maybe a great place to start.
Which one?
So the one where you walked out of your job, right? You can say who you worked for. It doesn't bother me. You say whatever you want. People can look it up and find out, or you can go for it. It doesn't matter to me. But I think it's a really important story because that's the connection that I had with you. I've never met you before, I don't think. Maybe we shared a couple emails or something. But that post really hit me, because you took action, right? You said, fuck this. This is what I'm doing. And I don't think you did it lightly. So maybe you can just describe to people briefly kind of what happened.
I will invite folks to go to Action Jonze on Instagram just to see exactly the minute by minute. But what I will say at a very high level is that we got into this mess in large part for lack of communication and lack of understanding and lack of being able to sit across from one another and look at each other like human beings and have a conversation, right? And with social media, we have the ability to engage. We have the ability to like. We have the ability to reply to people. And that is another form of conversation. And essentially, what broke my heart with Triumph, what absolutely broke my heart was that a company that's supposed to espouse a product, or that's supposed to sell a product that is a motorcycle that espouses freedom. You know, we claim to be able to ride anywhere, and you know, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman rode their BMWs around the world, and that's freedom, right? Freedom to wave at whomever, freedom to stop wherever and have a beer and talk smack about whatever bike you don't like but you secretly do like. You know, I mean, this is the freedom that motorcycling engenders in its community. And so for my former organization, Triumph, for them to quash that conversation after a day of constructive conversation, it just, that was my line. And, you know, I enjoy everyone that I work with. You know, it's just, corporations are a lot like us, right? I mean, it took me, I'm 36 years old, and it took me until I was 36 to actually put my foot down. And so how can I expect a company that makes however many millions of dollars overnight just to change their mind and be like, oh wait, we'll just let everything. And so I get it. But at the same time, you know, I just wish that they could have let the conversation happen. And the last thing I'll say about it is, you know, every year Triumph Motorcycles does they partner with the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride and the Movember Foundation for this wonderful ride that benefits men's health and, you know, creates awareness for all the things that plague us as men, right? And so every October, millions of dollars are raised, heaven and earth is moved, you know, entire cities are taken over in benefit of men's health. And when a Black man is killed by the knee of a police officer for, you know, on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that is a direct threat to that man's health. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Well, for people that haven't watched that video, you should, because there's a lot more to it, right? And I think the piece that really got to me, at least, was the action that you took at the end. You said, you know what, I'm gonna put my foot down, right? I'm gonna make a change, right? And I think that's super important. And I think the direction that you all are going with your foundation it's noble, but it's also the right thing to do, right? And it's hard to do the right thing because and I don't claim to be a historian by any means. I'm learning something every day, but a lot of this is all about money, right? Slavery was certainly all about money, right? There's no doubt about that.
Evil in there too, right?
Oh yeah,
I wanted a person.
Oh yeah, no, like, for sure,
you know.
Right? But it was about white people to be able to make more money, right? How can we do this? We're going to enslave West Africans. And then they did not want to. And like I said, I'm not a historian here. I'm doing like top line, right?
Right.
North and the South want to be, you know, or duking it out. And I think that I don't think I didn't understand that. You know, I don't think that that's something that we talk about as much. About, you know, capitalism can be a wonderful thing, but it can also, it's ultimately a lot of people are instructed in their lives by the almighty dollar, right?
Well, I think that a lot of people miss the idea that during the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln, quote unquote, freed the slaves, he didn't do that because he wanted equality and freedom for all. He actually said if he could figure out a way to win the war without freeing the slaves, he would. But the slaves were such an economic powerhouse for the South that in war, that's how you do it. You cripple your enemy by embargoes, by putting limits on anything they could import, export, or what have you. That's what he did. He ended the war with that. I'm going to free the slaves because I know it's going to hurt you, not because it's going to benefit me.
Oh, you mean it wasn't a noble white man?
Ken, no. Hey, hold up. This is where
that was a joke in there.
Here's where I can respond and say, you talking smack about the 40% of me that's white right now? You know, because it's nuance, right? And where we're at right now, we've lost, or maybe we've never had it, nuance. Because
100%.
When someone calls me the N-word, as I say, people who know me know this story, but when people call me the N-word, do I say, you know, are you, which percentage are you talking about me? You know, is it the 60 or is it the 40? Like, you know, and are you going to say nah, or just you're going to go all the way? I mean, you know, so it's like just the nuance is just, you know, just like take a second. That's, I think, ultimately what we're doing is all about. I mean, Action Jonze is about the nuance. And how do you get to the nuance? By just going past the point of just the surface. So you start this conversation like we're doing right now.
Exactly. So I know that you were a victim of police brutality, right?
A victim? I mean, did I have a choice? I don't know. Maybe, but I guess a victim doesn't have a choice, right? I don't know. I don't like to be called a victim. I mean, I'm like,
I know.
I'm a man over here, right? But
yeah, sure. We all are.
All right. Yes. I mean, I was, but I tried not to be. But
we wake up every day and we try not.
Yeah,
we're trying every day just to live. We just want to wake up, and I want to come home every day to my daughter and not have a story like that to tell.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell the story of 2 nights ago?
Oh,
people aren't even gonna believe this shit. I mean, I read it and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what?
It's weird. Like, I find myself in these weird situations that, like, if I didn't experience it, if I didn't have photographs, like this only happens in movies. This way the timeline works. Like, it was really bizarre, and I'm still processing this, to be fair. But so I'm sitting up here on the same rooftop I'm sitting on right now. I'm hanging out with a couple of friends after a week and a half of protests, and I just needed to not. I decided that night I'm not going to go out to the protest, and my phone just keeps going off. I'm like, eventually I need to answer this.
Yeah.
So I looked down at my phone, and it turns out it's a video of somebody who looks like me.
Hold on, wait. Before you get to that part, we got to be sequential with it. Because you went there.
I did. So this was at night.
Yes.
When I got the call that happened, I immediately jump on my bike. You know, I'm at the point of tears. I'm like, this cannot be happening in my backyard. So I get on my bike, and I stop at a gas station. And we'll get to this in a second because there's a video that goes along with this. But I get to a gas station, and there are 2 officers in this gas station. I'm hot. I'm pissed off. But I try my best to be articulate and reel myself in. And I said, hey, man, you look mad comfortable about to enjoy the hell out of that Fanta. And the officer turns around. He says, yes, I am. I said, I don't know if you heard, but another one of us got killed. He said, oh, that's unfortunate. I said, no, I don't think you understand me. Another one of us, somebody who looks like me and you, was just killed by an officer, and he was unarmed. He said, man, I didn't hear anything about that. I said, you know, I'm trying to talk to him. He walks out of the gas station. I talk to another officer. His partner comes out of the restroom. I tell him the same thing. And I asked him, I said, at what point do you as an officer decide it is time for you to step in? At what point do you decide, hey, man, you shouldn't push a knee on this man's neck? Maybe not. Maybe don't draw your gun. Maybe you don't need to kill this man tonight. And he says to me, and at some point we're going to post a link to this on YouTube, the video, because I have the whole full length video. I didn't know I was recording. My helmet was just on. So I didn't know I was recording this until I got back home. But he says to me, because of my badge, because of my job, I can't speak on that. I have to remain silent. And that pissed me off even more. You mean to tell me that as an officer, somebody who is charged with a badge to protect and serve the community, when you see one of your own about to kill somebody, you can't say anything? That is sad. Just that there's no other word for it. That's sad. So I eventually walked back out. You know, I had my moment, you know, F you too, or whatever, and I walk out, hop on my bike, and I get to the site where Rashard Brooks was murdered. And I'm at the Wendy's, and I see this crowd gather, and I see a bunch of people that I have known in the past. Man, I haven't seen this dude in 15 years went to the same high school as me or whatever. We're all a part of this community, and we all just want answers. And one of the, I guess maybe a lieutenant, a captain or whatever, one of the white shirt officers says, "Oh, we're making incremental change." And I said to him on camera, "This does not look like incremental change to me. This is not incremental change. The fact that there's a body here of an unarmed black man denotes that there is no change at all. We're going through the same thing we were going through yesterday, a week ago, last year, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. This is not an incremental change." Fast forward 6, 7, 8 hours later, I've been at the protest for almost 12 hours, talking to officers at the Zone 3 precinct in Atlanta, and a few of them, I won't name their names, but I do know that, and I want to have a cup of coffee with them. So if you're watching this, I do want to sit down with y'all and talk with y'all about this after this podcast. And they said to me, "You don't know what it's like to have to make a split-second decision. You don't know what it's like to, in that moment have to arrest somebody and feel like you have to use lethal force." They said to me, "You need to go to the police precinct and take the civilian course." And I didn't say anything about it. I'm not going to say whether I have or haven't been trained. That's not the point. They told me, "Hey, you need to go do this because you don't know what it's like." So after 12 hours of protesting, I get home. It's about 1:30 in the morning. And I'm the type of tired where I just take my shirt off, I take my pants off, I'm laying on my fucking couch, and I'm just like, I just need to not. Like, my girl pours me a half a glass of whiskey, and I'm just chilling on the couch, and she sits down to the left of me, and to the left of me is a window, and I see this, again, being home for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I see the shadow outside my window. And I follow the shadow across my window, and then I see the door handle start to move to get into my apartment. And I slide over and I grab my firearm. I stage myself at the door. I open the door, and there's this man trying to get in my house, and I have my firearm aimed square at his head. He's terrified. And again, I don't know if it was because this man saw me in my underwear or because I had a firearm out. I don't know that either one could have been equally scary. I'm just saying. So I guess he turned around and saw something else he could take. He grabs my daughter's bicycle.
He's still trying to take the bike though.
So he turns around, tries to grab my daughter's bicycle, and leaps off of my porch, runs down the stairs, and I say, "Gun, put it down," because at that point, this is my daughter's bike. This is my 9-year-old's bicycle. She loves that bike. You're not taking my daughter's bike.
Sure.
So I aim my gun square at the back of his head, and I'm a good shot. I aim my gun square at the back of his head, and in that moment, a split second, I said, maybe there's another way, and I find a clear line of sight for a good 500 yards. For anybody who's, you know what not only is your target, but know what's behind your target.
Sure.
Never fire on firearm and don't know what's behind your target. So I found a clear line of sight. I fire off a warning shot. This man got so scared that he stumbled down the stairs and damn near broke his leg. I think he broke his leg. He's not okay. Stumbles off, and he's laying over on the side of my apartment. Now, the rest of the story is not important. I called the police after discharging my firearm. And that's an important part. When you discharge your firearm, please let somebody know. You don't want to end up in a whole nother situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Agreed.
at the end of the day, when I got back inside, this was not even a thought process until I got back inside. And I thought about it, what those officers said to me. You don't know what it's like to make a split-second decision. You don't know what it's like to have to, decide whether or not you're going to kill somebody. I didn't decide not to kill him because of any other reason than he is a human being, and I cannot, as a man, shoot somebody in his back. He didn't deserve to die. I don't care what he did.
Yes.
It is not up to me to be judge, jury, and executioner. So he went to jail. They put him in handcuffs. He went to jail. He has a court date, and the judge will decide what his fate is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's some validity in the system. While I don't agree with all of it, there is some validity in the system, and it is not up to me to decide whether or not, because that man tried to break into my house, because he tried to steal my daughter's bike.
Yeah, because we have a system in place, and it's not. It's certainly not perfect, right? And Lance, you're going to have to unmute yourself. So I think I'm getting feedback from the two of you because I think you're kind of close together.
So
No.
okay. So, but what's important about what he just said is because that was an example of exactly. It's a good way to put it. What happened with Mr. Brooks, with Brother Brooks, was an example of what the police maybe should rethink. And when I say maybe should rethink, they should rethink shooting a man twice in the back when he's running away with a spent taser. Yes, we should rethink that. But what happened earlier that night, what happened earlier that night with me was just almost like diametrically opposite, because that night I was asleep in my bed, and this was, you know, we've been going hard for, you know, 2-3 weeks now, and this was that night was the first night where I was actually able to lay down and say, all right, I look forward to at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And so I lay down in my bed at 1 o'clock, and next thing I'm waking up at 2:30 in the morning, and I hear a ruckus outside. I hear people arguing, and I hear something really hard being hit on something, and I'm like, oh no, something's happening. So I walk to my window, and what you have to understand about my house is, if my house is here, I live in College Park, to the south of me is public housing, and then to the north of me are homes that are worth in upwards of $1 million. And my house is right there on the line of gentrification. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, some nights you get a little rowdy, right?
Sure.
But that night, it sounded different. It sounded like someone was emoting, you know, like just letting go. But the way that he let go was, you know, he maybe let go a little too loud. Maybe he knocked down a door. So I'm like, all right, let me just take some video. So I take some footage, because you never know if the cops are going to come. I'm standing inside my house, going through my little plantation shutters, which is an interesting word for that. And I'm getting my guy doing his thing. And I'm like, all right, stop, go back to sleep. But before I go to sleep, I bring my Mossberg 590A1 shotgun, because I'm prepared. And I bring my Glock 43 close, because I'm prepared. You never know. Who knows? It could be something that went wrong, right? I don't know. But 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by. Then I see the blue lights. And I hear some cars pulling up real quick. And I look over at my weapons, and I look outside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like something's about to happen. Like, so what do? I pick up my phone, and without my shirt, just my running shorts on, I walk out my house, and I walk to the front of my yard. I walk down the driveway and onto the sidewalk, and I take some photos and I record some video while all this is happening, because I'm like, all right, if something happens here, yep, I at least want to make sure that they know that I'm here, number one, because, you know, I'm friendly with some people in the government, the city government in College Park, and I just want to let them know that I'm here. And so I had an opportunity to stay inside my house and watch as my neighbor could potentially be gunned down, or I could go out there and make my presence known and at least let the cops know that somebody else is here that is nothing to do with what's going on, right?
Yeah.
The cops were nothing but fantastic. The College Park Police Department drove up. They walked out. No guns drawn, no tasers drawn. All they did was walk up to my man who was struggling, who was angry, and talk to him like a human being. Yep. And next thing you know, like, we were all like this, and then the cops came, and it went like that.
Yep.
And that's the definition of community policing. Yep. And what people who might not understand what this movement is about, what Black Lives Matter, what Don't Kill Us is all about, it's like, we're not against community police. We're not against the police that understand that we are human beings and roll up and understand that you don't have to come out like this. You don't have to. And right at the end of that, right when everyone was talked down, I get a text from Q, and that's when Q's story picks up. And so just that example, example of what we could be doing, an example of what we are doing. Yeah, it's just, it blew my mind. I was like, this is ridiculous, because my man who was on our block could have died that night. He could have been Rayshard Brooks. He could have been Tamir Rice. He could have been name N, like N. He could have been N Black people that have been killed, but he wasn't.
Sure. Hey,
to that point.
Yeah.
That day when all this stuff happened, when I had to pull my firearm out and fire that warning shot, earlier that day, again, I had those conversations with those police officers, and, you know, they made a very good point of saying, you know, y'all were out here protesting. They had the bullhorns and everything, you know, and I will use names for this, you know, Officer Steve Purvis, stand-up guy. I want to have a cup of coffee with him. I hope, again, if you're listening, man, let's go hash it out one day. Great officer. And I can say that to the degree that, like, he will sit and talk with you before he does anything violent. He sat there with her, and I watched him do it. I'm saying I watched him do this in the face of, let's say, 10 or 15 other officers who looked like they wanted, not even looked like, they wanted to get violent.
Right.
Yeah.
Officer Purvis sat back and was like, yo, man, can y'all just please chill out. We get that y'all want to be heard. We get that you guys are hurting. We understand. How can we solve this? Yeah. What do you need from us? And the fact that officer took the time to ask that instead of coming back with a riot shield and a gas mask and tear gas and a rifle and looking the part of the aggressor.
Yeah.
He said, you know what, man, what can we do?
Yes.
And we had a conversation.
That's it.
Yep. And
That's
I think there's a conflict. I have, so one of my closest friends is a police officer. And I'm not going to talk about his experience. That's his experience. But what I see in him and what I see in other friends of mine who are law enforcement is an internal struggle, right? Because I'm not friends with shitheads, right? Like I'm friends with good people. And there is an internal struggle there, right? Like there's an internal struggle about supporting your fellow officer. You know, like obviously everybody wants to do the right thing. I think people have, I think generally people have, you know, are trying to do their best. I know.
Hold on. All right. We get you on that. Yes. In theory, right?
Yes.
In theory, everyone who joins the police department is, you know, high-minded and in it for the right reasons. But, you know, we don't know that because we don't have the proper mental health checks when these people get hired.
Yep.
And not only that, we don't have the proper mental health checks each year because it is a hard job being a police officer. And when you're on the streets, you see some shit.
For sure.
And like, and just, and like, in speaking to, I think you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on, but just like, so I had an interesting, there's a young brother in Atlanta here called, his name is Brother Yisrael Wright. And he has a barbershop and it's a wonderful barbershop. It's called, you know, what is it? Man, my bad.
No, it's all good.
But we had a wonderful forum there. And the forum was basically folks in a room and we had some wonderful speakers and we were just talking about things. And in the Black community, Black men, as we kind of touched on maybe before, we don't really talk about stuff. We hold stuff in, we internalize, we compartmentalize, and we die young.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of this particular talk, a police officer from Atlanta spoke, and he said some great points, and I respect him for number one going in there, because the first thing he said was, I don't want to be here.
Yep.
And I understand that, because everyone in the room there was looking at him like what are you gonna say, right?
Yep.
But to his credit, he went in there, he took so many questions, and it was great. But there was one thing that he did say that kind of rubbed me slightly the wrong way, which was, you know, he was talking about how, you know, he was talking about the rioting and the looting and all the stuff that, you know, mainstream media wants to cover that is really just not what we need to be talking about. Yes, it's bad. We all know it. But he was like, look, the people that are rioting are Antifa. The people that are looting are Antifa. And number one, I was like, okay, all right, well, we'll just talk about that later, right? So when I got up to speak, because I was the last speaker there, what I asked the crowd there was, a lot of people were clapping about the fact that Antifa was the ones looting, right? We're the ones looting. But I asked them, what does Antifa stand for? What is it short for? And, you know, maybe one or two people could answer, you know, the question, but Antifa is short for anti-fascist, anti-fascista.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, that goes to the Iron Front during World War II, who were covertly trying to take down Hitler and the Axis powers. And so that's not to say that people in Antifa aren't bad, but that's not to say that everybody in the police are good. So he was painting with a broad brush, saying everybody in Antifa was bad. They were the ones solely responsible for the rioting, when he's asking us to not paint police officers with the broad brush So it's like, you can't say for this group, they're all like this, and then expect us to look at you and say, all of y'all are good, because what?
It's the same thing with bikers, right? Like, and I don't mean to bring it back to that piece, but I think it's important, right? Is that if we look at the broad motorcycle community, and if you listen to Gavin last week on the podcast, you know, she is, you know, obviously a woman, you know, Black, gay rider, right? And she's like, I have been embraced by the biker community for 40 years now or something, you know, like some enormous number. And she's like, yeah, I've had my run-ins, but in general, I can be me, right? And I feel like in general that happens, but I also feel like there's another part of it, because, you know, and I see it on social media. I don't see it. I see it occasionally face to face, right? It's not, and you and I have had conversations about this, Lance, about, you know, people saying things around me and me going, that's not okay, right? Like, it's not okay to have a swastika on your bike. It's not okay to have a Confederate flag on your bike. It's not, you know, like really obvious stuff to me, right? And I have to have those conversations, right? And you know, Harley Davidson had Confederate flags on their motorcycles for an entire year, an entire model year. They used the Confederate flag up until 1996.
I didn't know that one. You taught me that one.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like what? On marketing materials, apparel, all sorts of things, you know? And so it's weird, right? Because it's not, all bikers are not the same, right? And if you look at, you know, kind of the thread of discussion afterward, and I encourage you to, because I think generally what I've found is that it's been really, really positive, is that there's a lot of people out there that really want to make a change, right? And how do we do that? And, you know, there was some talk about having maybe a ride in Sturgis this year, or having a bigger ride, or doing something. And it seems like what you all are doing right now is like the seed, right? For bikers, right? It's like the beginning of like, how do I get involved with something that's going to make a difference and ride my motorcycle, right? And be a part of something that's more important than just like having my hog patch on, or my, you know, my Triumph, you know, gear on, or whatever, you know,
Triumph
like
rat.
yeah, or whatever, you know, it's like, and so I think what you're doing is really important. But I need to tell you guys, probably did not hear this story because it's very, very local to me. Okay, so I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. Very, very
Good place.
what?
That's
It's
a real
rad.
place?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's very white. Okay. And it is. I'm telling you like it is. It's very white. Yesterday, a man in Loveland, just down the street from me, so in between Fort Collins and Denver, had a couple of guys come by who were selling roofing. We just had a big hailstorm. So they're out there selling door-to-door roofing. They went by this guy's house. He said, you know, I'm not interested. They went around the neighborhood, because that's what they do, right? All the roofs get ruined, right? So they just go around. And it happened to be that I think one of them was a CSU football player. I don't know about the other one. They were both African-American guys. He got it in his head that they were Antifa. He put on a tactical vest, AR-15, fully loaded, ready to go, and held these guys to the ground with a gun.
Wow.
Say what?
Oh yeah, in somebody's front yard. And you know what happened? He got out on a $500 bond because he's white. Are you fucking kidding me? If the roles were reversed, right? If the roles were reversed, there would have been a dead black man on somebody's lawn.
Let me say this.
It blows my mind.
I'm the only black person, well, the only black guy here, besides my neighbor beneath me, who made himself very scarce for a good reason, that night that I had to put my firearm out. My entire complex, my entire neighborhood came out, mostly white women, and had to let the officers know, hey, he's with us, he's good, he's fine. We are so glad he's our neighbor, he's great, and I love all of them. They're amazing. They are so great. But the idea that they had to do that,
to vouch.
It's scary to know that I could have gone out there by myself, been well within my rights to defend my home, my life, my property, and most importantly, my daughter, and still, but I've watched videos just in the last day, in the last 24 hours, of officers walking into black men's homes, saying, oh, you need a warrant to come in, and then saying, no, we don't, and you're under arrest for being in their own homes.
Texas.
Yeah.
Shout out my man in Texas. Exactly.
Yep.
Ken.
Yes.
I want to touch on something real quick.
Sure.
Because we can all learn.
Yeah.
And you mentioned African American.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Exactly. So let's talk about black versus African American.
Yeah, please do.
You can be black, but not have African roots.
Yep.
So somebody from Honduras, for example, they're black, but they're here in the States, right? But they're black.
Yep.
But African American, my ancestors, they come from Germany and England. Shout out Chelsea Football Club, Scotland, Ireland. Like they come from all over there, right?
You
But then
bet.
the other part of it comes from West Africa and Central Africa, Congo. But I still call myself Black, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't, my roots. My roots come from everywhere, but for some reason, like for me, like I somewhat identify more with Black, and so I think Black is a good word that is a catch-all. Catch-all is probably the wrong way to say it, but it's an umbrella, and underneath the umbrella of Black, there is Black Latino Americano, there is Black African American, there is Black Japanese, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Japanese American. I mean, so like that's a good way to just kind of state it. So
Thank
Black.
you. No, I appreciate it. Hence, Black Lives Matter.
Education, right? And that's what this is about. And Ken, like, let's applaud you right quick, because not everybody would be able to just like listen to that for a second and be like, yo, explain it to me.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And I want to know. And that's the thing. And it's not, and for me, it's not even about doing the wrong thing, right? Or being embarrassed. Like, I want to honor people for who and what they are. Right. Right. Like that's what's important to me. And I really do feel like and
we're motorcyclists.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Motorcyclists.
Yeah, totally.
He has a fucking speed triple. I've had a billion bikes and I have a Scrambler 1200 XE. We're motorcyclists.
Well, let me touch on that real quick, because I was just going through some of the pictures that I sent you, Ken.
Yeah.
And the first
you can
picture
share your screen if you want. If you want to share your screen, you're more than welcome.
Let me
It'll probably ask me to allow you to do it, and I'm sure that
Here.
He's got to make sure that the photos that he took of me from last night, you can't share the photos.
It says host disabled screen sharing.
Oh, geez.
But there's a photograph in there that I sent you of a group of my friends, and we pulled up, and I have a race bike. I have a Yamaha R1, which is ungodly fast. I mean, that is just ridiculously quick. Let's see. Yep, not that one. That's the
one that I pulled up earlier.
Israel.
Okay.
But there's a photograph in there of a group of me and my friends, and we're all in front of this big Atlanta mural.
Oh yeah.
Downtown.
Okay. Yep,
This one right here. This picture right here. You see these bikes right here, and I guarantee you, looking at those bikes, you cannot tell the race of the person who rides it. I have met so many amazing people through motorcycles. I mean, I've been a photographer since I could walk. Like legit, like I've always had my camera on me, and it has opened so many doors for me. I've been led into places that I should have never been, just with my camera. Like they let me photograph inside of strip clubs. I photographed princes and kings. Like it's crazy just having a camera. But me being on a motorcycle has that's how I met Lance. Like just having a motorcycle has brought me into the fold in so many different circles, and it's not about race. I've had my bike just to smoke a cigarette and I've been on a long ride, stopped on the side of the road, and I've had guys with swastikas and Confederate flags stop because they saw me and were like, hey man, are you okay? Is your bike okay? Do you need help?
So weird.
And that to me was crazy to see that. I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
Bikes are that thread that keep everybody, I don't care where you're from, what your nationality is, what you believe in, whether you're gay, straight, male, female, whatever. You on two wheels?
Yep.
All right, cool. That's it.
Yep.
And I feel like that's where it's a conversation starter, right? Like that's where, I mean, myself, like I grew up in like a white middle class family that never rode motorcycles, right? Like riding motorcycles was dirty and not something that my family did, right? And when I started riding a motorcycle, it was like, what are you doing? And then I realized, I think I was 18 when I got my first bike. It was like, oh, these are my people. Like this is my this is my group, and I just ended up in the industry. So and the amount of people, it's same with you, I know. And it's the same thing. And it's the amount of people that I've met in the motorcycle industry that I would call brothers that I do not share their viewpoints.
In the distance, I don't know if you hear it, there's a sport bike flying by. So it's just fitting that you were just talking about that. Right
Nice. But that I don't share their viewpoints and we can have conversations. And I've had some conversations this last week with some people that have been really cathartic, really just like pretty heavy, you know, and tough going. I want to go to where you guys are going with Action Jonze, passion action. People need to understand the seed of that and where it is. And while I do that, I'm going to run through some of these pictures. So if you want at any point for me to stop, just let me know. Okay.
I know I'm muted, right? I had to unmute myself. I want you to stop on this picture real quick before the picture a second ago, with my friends working on that bike. You know, shout out to my buddy Eli, Dude Mungus. Look him up on YouTube. He's amazing. Eli, I've known him since I was in college, and he's the black guy. He's got the Ducati. Known him for. I used to street race. I used to have. I built race cars. You know, we used to do all kinds of things that we weren't supposed to do. And it really just the race car community brought us all together. But the fact that I remember this day, he was putting on a new exhaust for his Ducati, and he's got a pretty decent YouTube following. And so all of us who are part of this kind of Dude Mungus movement went to my buddy John's house, who's a white guy, white family, lives out in the in the boonies, and all sat around, drank beers, talked shit, and just worked on this bike together. And to me, that was kind of that when Lance said to me, motorcycles are for everybody, I thought about this day. Yeah. And the idea that we all sat there, it didn't really matter where you were from or what you believed in. We cared about bikes. And that's kind of, I don't want to speak for Lance, but like this really where I feel like this movement came from was something like this picture right here. Yep. Being able to say, you know what, I love this. Yep. And if I don't have it, my homie's got it. If he don't have it, he's got a buddy that's got it. And we can all just come together on that.
Yep.
I'll just say yes. Yes. I've ridden, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I've ridden all over the world, and it really is that bridge. And I think the thing that extends beyond the motorcycle world and motorcycle industry is that there's a million other things in this world that can serve as a bridge. And a motorcycle is our bridge. That's how we got here right now on this podcast. Yeah. Others might have a camera, and that could be the bridge to, another race, another culture, another religion, whatever. Others might have a surfboard, a wakeboard, a running shoes, or the act of running. But how do you find that common thread? How do you find that common thread with people that you don't know? You have to talk to them. Yeah. And you have to put yourself out there and say, hey, I don't know you, but those running shoes you have on, like my dad had them in 1996, and he ran the Atlanta, the world's greatest 10K, wherever that race was. And actually I ran it with him. And then there's this photo of me in front of my dad with those same Nike Air Max 96s. And it takes me back to that photo, and all it takes is just a second to be like, should I talk to them or of course you should talk to them. Of course. Where do we get to the point where we can't even say hello? Where do we get to the point where we can't even say, yo, I appreciate that shirt you're wearing? Or, yo, I used to have hair like you, or, yo, my beard used to be long like you. Like, where do we get to the point where we can't even say that?
Yep.
And that just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
And I think part of it is it's the way you're brought up, right? Like culturally. So how, at least for me, like, and the only example that I have is, I've got like a ton of tattoos. And my wife pointed out one day, she was like, hey, so, people ask you about your tattoos and you're always a dick to them. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, they ask you about your tattoos and you're generally like not cordial about it. And I had no idea that I was doing that, right? Like I didn't even recognize that was something that I was like, and I was like, oh, I don't mean to be that way, And now it's like, and part of it is like, I mean, do I really want to get into like every story about and it's like, nah, I don't really want to, but yeah, like, I mean, I got both sleeves done, my leg, it's like, but the other side of that is do I want to have an interaction with somebody? People are trying to find connections, right? Like they're trying to find connecting points with people, and they're trying to connect with you. And they were like, hey, let's talk about tattoos. Like that's something that's easy and obvious. Or let me talk about your motorcycle, right? Or let me talk about those shades. Right now, the only thing that I really want to talk about is Quintavius's lighting, because it's so dope.
Yo, my girlfriend gave me this nice light. Quintavius with the light, with the.
It's pretty dope.
Hey, hold up. But I don't need the light, though. You know why? I got the light refracted off me already. I'm good. No, yeah. And look, and you're getting a little snippet right now, Ken, as to what it's like, in the Black community, right? Because we understand that we have different shades. We understand that, we all have, different stories, right? But all that matters is that you're there talking.
Yep.
And sometimes you might be yelling, or you might be going back and forth, but sometimes you gotta talk to who you're talking to,
Yep.
And sometimes you have to use your voice a little differently, and you have to be able to look across from someone and say, hey, tell me what you thought about, and then sometimes you got to be like, hey man, I got to tell you something. You got to listen to me, and what you're seeing now on the streets are people that are done they're done with saying, hey, here's why I think you should get the knee off of my neck, because I can't breathe. And, if you stay on my neck for another few minutes, I'm going to lose consciousness and then I'm going to die. We're tired of talking like that. And now what you're hearing is people saying, hey, here I am. And I am a motorcyclist just like you. And just how come when we're on the bikes together, we can be cool. And then somehow when I swing a leg off the bike and I turn the corner and take off my motorcycle jacket and take off my helmet and take off my gloves, all of a sudden I'm somebody different because I'm the same person.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a few people there's a few things that really push buttons in the motorcycle industry, right? So Confederate flag, that really got some people riled up. They feel like that it's not fair, right? Can't take away the Confederate flag from NASCAR. Can't burn the flag, right? Can't kneel during the national anthem or while the flag is up, right? So what the fuck are you supposed to do, right? Like those are all peaceful ways of, right? They're not, like, burning a flag is not my favorite thing, right? It does not, when I see it,
Somebody hurt themselves.
It makes me sad, right? It makes me really sad, but I understand it. It's a way of protesting, right? It is a way of people going, something has to change, right? And it's the same, like kneeling during the national anthem is like the most, it pisses me off so much that people get so riled up about it, because it's a peaceful protest.
It's deferential.
It's what our country was founded on.
The Green Beret, right? Like, told Colin Kaepernick to kneel. He said, hey, how Colin Kaepernick reached out to the Green Beret reached out to Colin Kaepernick, and Colin Kaepernick said, hey, I want to, protest. What's a good way to do it? And then I think Nate Boyer is his name. And he said, hey, why don't you think about kneeling?
Yeah. Yeah. And it got everybody's attention, right? And then nothing. Right. That's the thing. It's like banging a head against the wall. And
I think that's where a lot of the pictures that I made came into play when I was, and a lot of these photographs that I sent you were photographs from protests from, 2013, 2014, when Trump got elected. This was, during the Trump, this is actually an off-duty police officer was the one who took off his badge and took out a flag and decided to say, he said, this is not why I joined the force. Yeah. I did not join the force to try and serve my country, serve my community for this. And when I made the photographs of the individuals burning cop cars and really letting their voice, we tried to kneel.
Yep.
We tried to peacefully, we've marched. My mother was a Black Panther in the 60s. Like how in the hell am I making the same pictures that were made back then? This photograph right here with this kid at my, I am not a hashtag. Look at that. My daughter is 9 years old. And she has to say to me, Daddy, please don't go to war today. My 9-year-old understands what's happening in the world to the degree that she knows that when I go out, I might not come back. So when you have folks that are setting cop cars on fire and yelling and throwing this and throwing that, yo, we tried, and y'all didn't like it. So it is clear. They made it very clear, and I say they to the degree that you have the military, you have the police who are now quote unquote military.
Looks like me.
They don't understand vocalization. They don't understand peaceful protest. They understand I'm going to shoot this man in his back. They understand force. And that is the problem. Because when I had those conversations the other day at Zone 3 Precinct with those officers, that was a conversation, that was an exchange that we had. And it's such a shame that we don't have enough officers like that. All they understand is force. I'm going to kill this man today because that's how I operate. So now we have a group of people, a race of people who are enraged. And, you know, several people have said it better than I have. You're lucky that we don't want revenge. We just want equality. We want to be seen as human beings.
Oh,
That's such a heavy sentiment.
That's heavy, man. That's heavy. Yeah, I mean that, and trying to get a retired or former law enforcement officer or just one, I can't get anybody to come on and talk about any, right? They're like, there's nothing that I'm going to say. Like, I'm going to get screwed either way. I mean, either people are going to be pissed off at me from law enforcement, or people are going to be pissed off at me because I'm to this way, to that way. I'm never going to say the right thing. And it's such, you know, I've put a call out there, and I will say it again. If there's anybody out there that is former law enforcement, I understand that there's probably a snowball's chance in hell that we are going to end up getting somebody who is currently employed as a law enforcement officer on a program, right?
Tell them to hide their face.
Yeah.
Change your voice.
Sure. I'll do it all, right? I'll figure it out.
We can deep fake it. We can make him sound like Brad Pitt.
Exactly. Yep. But having somebody on and having their voice be heard, because like you said previously, Lance, there's a lot of nuance to it. You know, just like there's a lot of nuance to a motorcycle, right? Like, I don't love every Harley Davidson, right? I don't even like every, you know, Softail. I don't like every Triumph. I don't like, you know, I don't like every whatever, you know, I mean, it just depends on my mood for that day, et cetera. And I think that's true of, you know, and I don't like the right and left. I don't like the politics. I don't like all the bullshit that goes along with it, you know, and it's so, I think people having the conversations like we're having, and the work that you guys are doing with Action Jonze and with Passion Action, I think that's what matters. You know, can you give people like just the quick 2-second version of what you're going to be doing? You're going to be in 50 states, right?
Yeah.
So go for
quick
it.
2-second version.
Yeah.
50 states plus DC and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, my dad was born in a place called Aguadilla, Puerto Rico.
Nice.
And, you know, we want to go to all 50 states and identify an issue that is locally relevant, but still impactful to all of us, right? And because what's impactful to one person in Colorado is impactful to one person in Mississippi, even if it doesn't directly impact them. Because we, you know, what we're getting out of this is the fact that, you know, we're trying to show people that we're all connected, right?
Yep.
And we're all connected. And in order to understand that, you have to get in front of someone and have a conversation. So we are literally willing to go to all 50 states plus DC and Puerto Rico to have those conversations and put them in front of you. And we're not going to do anything other than tell the truth. We're going to listen to other people's truths, and we're going to let them sit down in front of us and say, hey, here's what happened to me, or here's what I'm doing in order to make this particular issue better. And so, you know, ultimately, like, yeah, we could talk about the nuance of all the miles we're going to ride and how much gas we're going to need, which is a lot, by the way. And, you know, and the chase cars and the tires and the, you know, and all the extra, all that stuff. Yes. But ultimately what we're doing, we're riding on our motorcycles and we're connecting with people, and we're getting those stories, those impactful people, a platform. We're amplifying the voices that already exist. And, you know, I said earlier how it took me 36 years to find my voice. Well, you know, it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. You know, we can find our voices as soon as we all realize we have one, you know, and what we want to do is just shine a light. We want to shine a light on those people. And, you know, it's all about the love, and there's no kind of side other than the side of love and good and truth that we're on. And I think if you're someone that is a fan of equality, someone that's a fan of being able to walk out every day and not feel the need to cringe every time a siren goes off, you know, then I'm with you, you know? I mean, it's not much deeper than that.
Yeah. So where can people go find out more about what you guys are doing right now? I think that people, and then I want to get to what people can do in their daily lives to make a difference. So where can they find you guys right now?
Well, right now, as we speak, you know, our organization is now grown to formally 9 members. And for all y'all watching out there, thank you for your help, because we couldn't be where we are without everyone. This is a collective. It's not me, it's not Q, it's us. And there's a reason why us is kind of like the United States, because it is all of us together. Action Jonze is not just the 9 members of the organization plus the board. It is all of us. It's all the people who want to exact some change from the shit situation that we're currently in. And so I encourage people to go to Action Jonze, be it YouTube, be it Facebook, be it Twitter, be it Instagram. Those are right now where we're at. And I can tell you, as we speak, we're finalizing copy on our website. Eventually, you know, you can pretty much figure out where that URL might be. Right now, that's where you'll find us. And we're not about shoving things down your throat, so to speak. We're about a conversation. It's not sign up for a newsletter and be bombarded by shit. It's no, we want you to email back. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have a conversation, because that's how you recognize the mutual humanity. And you know, I'll let Q add to it as far as, you know, how we're going to display this message, how we're going to show it. But, you know, just from where I'm at, you know, I've been on motorcycles all around the world, and I've been in North Georgia. I've seen the Confederate flags. I've seen the that didn't stop me. You know, I can still sit across from anybody and have a conversation and find some common thread, because we're human beings. We all have a common thread. Q.
I mean, if I'm
Oh, my bad. Okay, now I'm unmuted. Technology. If I'm honest, you know, as far as the art community goes, you know, there's been mass segregation going on. There's, you know, it's a political game with the art community. And, you know, I've been a member of the art community long before I was a member of the moto community, and I want to see the two merge. I want to, and I remember last year I went into a gallery at Jackson Fine Art. They did a gallery about the bike riders, and Danny Lyons did he made some amazing photographs of the Hells Angels and the gangs, you know, back in the day. And people came from all over the place to see that. And I want to see that with what we're doing. You know, all the photographs that I'm going to make, that Lance is going to make, that other people, that people that we ride by, you know, we can be in Wisconsin. There's a photographer out there who has a voice and needs to be seen. I want all these photographs to be in a book somewhere, to be in a gallery somewhere, so people can see what is happening in their neighborhoods. They can identify with. There's a lot of things that you might say, or that the next person might say, that I don't get, that I don't understand. But this person over here in North Dakota or in Colorado or in Maine might have a voice that can really translate to his neighborhood, to his people, and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is the issue we need to really tackle right now. So me as a photographer, I see the value in that. You know, I go out every day and I make pictures of people that I just don't understand. And that's my way of understanding them, is through pictures. And I think there is so much value in seeing other people's voices, giving them a chance to display that work in art galleries, in news outlets, in books, and in magazines, and on Instagram or what have you. Blow them up. Let them know that they are heard, they are seen.
Awesome. So where do we go from here? That's the question, you know. What do we do? You know, I can tell you, for me, you know, the biggest piece is knowing that my house is in order, right? Like getting right up here, getting right here, whatever that means for people, right? For me, it's, you know, combination of meditation and yoga and, you know, talking to people, right? And for other people, and riding motorcycles, right? Like those are the things that matter to me, that make me, you know. And obviously I've got a family, and there's a lot of things, and I think everybody's really complex, but getting right with yourself,
yeah,
and then taking that out into the world,
Well, I'm going to give a shameless plug right here. My girlfriend, OK Cookie on Instagram with 2 E's. She's a yoga teacher, and she's very much about that life.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot. So to your point, what can we do to get our house in order? There have been so many corporations, so many companies, so many different. You know, there's the Coca-Colas, there's the Triumphs, there's the this, there's that. Leica Camera has been amazing. Just saying that, putting it out there. Leica Camera has been amazing in giving people that voice. What are you doing in your home to really perpetuate that? Are you buying from people who really need it? Are you shopping in places? You know, there's the big corporations, but hey, there's the market down the street that's really hurting right now. COVID is a thing. People have been in their houses for the longest. Are you shopping at local businesses? Are you really looking for the people who really need this in your community? There are yoga teachers. Like I said, my girl is a brilliant yoga teacher, and she's all about that. So not only will you get the meditation and get the stretches and get the exercise, but you're going to get knowledge.
Yep.
And there's people like that all over the place in whatever industry you're in. There's so many people out there, art outlets, automotive outlets, all kinds of things. Are you really doing your research? And I think that's what we're doing, is really giving those people those voices, people that you would have never, ever heard about, who are doing amazing things, big things, and you just needed that extra push to get that voice out there.
Yep.
Yeah, and to piggyback and to answer your question, where do we go from here? There's a wonderful line in a song by one of my favorite artists, Nas, who's like, how's the president going to fix other places if he hasn't fixed home yet? And that's essentially what you're saying, Ken, is that all of us have to look inward. All of us have to be able to use their voice when they see something that is wrong. And that's not an easy thing, because we can't all speak up when we see something wrong, but the next time we can.
Yeah.
And that's the key. The next time we can. Right now, we're in the present. Time may be non-linear. You know, we're human beings. We perceive it one way. You know, I love Inception, so it could be kind of weird like that too. But we have to be able to self-diagnose. And we're hurting. All of us are hurting right now. It doesn't matter which side you're on. We're all hurting. And shit, maybe that's a tie right there. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter if you're independent. You know, we all see what's going on. We're all hurting. It could be corona. It could be violence. It could be hunger. It could be poverty. It could be losing a parent, a child. It could be anything. We're all hurting. But you know, when I'm hurt, I just need a hug. And I need a hug, and I need a kind word. I need someone to sit there and listen to me. And, you know, maybe we start with that. And that's the first step. You know, that's the first step. It doesn't have to be any deeper than that. You don't have to go march on the front lines. You don't even have to hashtag Black Lives Matter. You don't even have to post a damn thing. But the next time you see someone, regardless of what they look like, and they could be black, they could be white, they could be Hispanic, they could be whatever. Chinese, Japanese, they could be whatever. But if you look at them and say, despite what they are, despite whatever they may be, I see you as a human being, and I'm gonna ask you, how are you, my brother? And that's when I walk up to people, you know, yeah, you might think if you don't understand, Black people refer to each other as brother and sister, but that extends beyond. That's family, right? Ken, you're my brother, Ken.
Yeah.
You're my brother, and I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you facilitating and empowering conversation. Like, that is a beautiful thing. And at the end of the day, that's what this documentary is about. That's what this media company is about, because you know, we're going to tackle Black Lives Matter, you know, because right now the rainforest is burning, right? The Amazon rainforest is burning, but that doesn't mean we don't care about all the other trees. And we have our brothers and sisters that are in cages right now, you know, with ICE. We have our brothers and sisters, you know, in the Dust Bowl that are having to worry about blight and climate change, global warming, getting rid of their crops. We have brothers and sisters that are, you know, that are in South Florida having to worry about the crazy red tide, getting rid of the fishing. You know, I mean, this shit is everywhere, and people are hurting everywhere. But right now the Amazon is burning. And right now me and Q don't want to die. You know, we want to live long enough so we can help everybody, because that's our goal. Because it's not just about us. It's about all of us.
Yeah. And it really is. And I think that's where it's the humanity that I see in the amount of empathy that we all can have towards each other, and compassion, understanding, especially for people that I don't agree with, right? Not even, but especially for. It's a hard place to get to. But if I'm right with myself, I can start to take the next right actions, right? And for me right now, I've organized a ton of motorcycle rides over the years, all charity rides and, media rides and all that sort of thing. I feel like you've probably done a few of those yourself there, Lance. And I feel compelled, like this year in Sturgis, having, and maybe it's a Black Lives Matter ride.
Ooh, oh.
It's that when you put that on it,
The chutzpah,
it becomes
the ovaries, the cojones.
It becomes pretty intense, right?
The first Sturgis rally I went to was not last year, but the year before.
Uh-huh.
There was a huge truck with Trump on it, right?
Yeah.
But I just wonder, what would the reaction be if there was a huge truck with Black Lives Matter on it?
That's what I'm saying. It's precisely what I'm saying.
Part.
Look at NASCAR right now, though. You got Bubba's car right now decked out in all of the Black Lives Matter, this and that. And folks are hot, but they're talking.
Yep.
And they're having a conversation.
That is my thing, right? Like that is and I'm not talking about it to do it as a publicity stunt, because I abhor that shit. I'm doing it because I think it's a conversation starter. I think it's a way for people to, because I think we could get the most amount of riders out of any ride in all of Sturgis. I really think we could. I think the community is strong enough that we could get thousands of people to show up. What do you think, Lance?
Well, I tell you what, in the words of, I think it was Ken Costner in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Well, that was his father. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do it, we could do it. That's all I'm saying. We can find a way to get there.
Yeah.
And we will get there.
Oh yeah.
I know I'll be there.
All right. Where can so you guys have your own Instagram pages. Pump those up now. Don't care.
No, I will defer to Q. Q has his.
Okay. Honestly, if you want to see some good journalism, I've been photographing models for damn near 20 years. So if you look up film_God on Instagram, there's that, and there's QOliverPhoto.com. You can go to that. I'm really lending my talents, my superpower, more towards what is relevant right now. I get it. Everybody loves looking at pretty girls and models and fashion. I love working with fashion. Oh, my light has died. There's that. I'm black for real today. So y'all don't see that. But I understand right now, while I do a lot of fashion work and a lot of model work, I want to show what the people are really going through right now. So y'all are going to see a whole lot of journalism, a whole lot of realness, a whole lot of street photography from me over the next coming months, over the next coming years. Look up film_God on Instagram.
Awesome.
And of course, for some wonderful curation of that content, you can go to that content and more. You can go to Action Jonze, ActionJonze. And, we have conversations that last minutes, #minutes with, and we are going to have our documentaries that go through each state that are a little bit longer than minutes. But what we were doing regardless is empowering voices, and we are facilitating conversation. And we're just giving to you straight. There's no bullshit behind this other than we want to hear your voice, and that's what we care about. And I'll wrap up here with just asking everyone out there, like one of the questions that we asked last week, because we were starting this question and answer session. We put out questions on our Instagram, and we just talked through the answers together. And the first question that we asked was, is a taser a lethal weapon? And the reason why I asked that question was if the answer is yes, the taser is a lethal weapon, then why are we using it right next to a gun on the holster of police officers everywhere as the quote unquote non-lethal option? And if a taser is not a lethal weapon, then why is Rayshard Brooks dead? Because, you know, I mean, and we have to get to that nuance of conversation because both of those answers are horrific. We don't want to think that the taser can kill people, but it can. I mean, you know, ask any doctor, it can. And so we can't hide behind these facts. All we have to do is acknowledge these simple truths. And when we start acknowledging the simple truths, then we can start facilitating some understanding. And that's what we're all about at Action Jonze. We want to facilitate understanding. We want to acknowledge the simple truths, and we want to hear from you. And we want to make your voice be heard, whether you dissent or you agree, because that's what it's all about. That's what this country is supposed to be all about.
Agree. Thank you so much, both of you. I like to give recommendations for people for further exploration of topics. One thing they can look up is President Obama issued a police reform suggestion about 2 years before he got out of office. It is great. If we had stuck with that, we may not be in the situation we're in. So people go look into that. Go watch Andrew Schultz's 7-minute deal about the Confederate flag. It's hysterical. And go watch Dave Chappelle's 846. Those three should give you lots to think about. I hope you all come back next week. I think we are going to have Sugar Bear on next week from Sugar Bear Choppers. He's a great guy, and Michael Lichter. We're going to continue this conversation every week until we don't have to have this conversation anymore. So
I love it, Ken. Love it.
I appreciate you for having us on.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.